if everyone could name one thing they like, one thing they hate, and one thing they think could nearly be there about the league mechanic, just because I'm curious if you all like or dislike the same things. So while you think, for me personally, I really like the mapping side of things, and I like the planning. I really dislike how you feel like you've been cheated and there's no like fail-safe protection. It's like if you have a disconnect or you get a failed run, you brick everything. That I hate. And then the thing which I think could be there, if they made it rewarding, which I don't think it is currently, if they made it rewarding enough for the memory nexus, I feel like all the work would feel worthwhile. You know? It's just currently it doesn't feel worthwhile because the reward isn't there. It's like if you had to do all this busy work, but then you clicked it, you got like, oh, crazy items or a bunch of scarabs. You'd be like, oh, that was worth because I got the scarabs. But now we don't have that, so it's just like.
I guess for me, what could be better and what I like are kind of the two same things, because it's the way you engage with the pieces and maps. Because I really think that they did a great job with the Decay, but it just sometimes does not fucking work at all. But if I think back to like Incursion, where it was just undoable, or it was just not a factor at all, and here you feel like you have a lot more control over it. Yeah, you get screwed over every now and then, which is the disappointing part and what I think could be better. But when it does work, and you're making those jumps and you're flame dashing across and all this stuff, and you feel like you're actually making a difference, that feels very freaking rewarding. So I like that a lot. And yeah, the thing that I hate is how just unintuitive it is. I actually really like the crafting system too. I'll say that much. If it can be, the intuitive works into itself into the crafting system, but I love the crafting system, and I think they did a very good job with choosing it to be all affixes and not the fractured ones.
I agree with actually running the memory stuff. It's really fun. Like actually playing the memory stuff is really fun. So I think they did a really good job with that. I think the lack of agency inside the memory nexus really gets to me. Like how little control I have over like constructing my thing, where there's all these holes popping up.
Yeah, and then you disconnect, and you fucking want to disconnect in real life, because holy shit, redoing that is.
Because the thing is, I think if you have more agency of actually running the area, right, you can construct it in an easier way. You don't need to increase the rewards, because then just being able to construct a better one increases the rewards. So I think fixing gameplay will actually increase like everything. It'll like just cascade out and make everything better. So instead of trying to like give us more things per node, just make the things easier to access and get around, and not feel like you're constantly like having to like micromanage everything.
You kind of hit the nail on the head with the thing that I dislike there as well. So I'm just going to be parroting what he said, that I feel like the system could really use a lot more agency. It's a good word. As far as what I like, I really enjoy the crafting system, and I think it's got a lot of potential for making some absolutely crazy items. I understand that it's like obtuse and difficult to approach. I don't see how you thin that down without losing some of the depth and complexity of it. I think it could be more well communicated though, and I think they could also do more of a good job of pushing a player towards exploring it. So I really like that thing we touched on, maybe an hour ago at the start of the podcast, of having Kvass sort of encourage you to use the device and say, here's a fractured item with this mod on it. Go combine it with some other stuff, see what happens. And then, after you do that, there's another step in the quest that Kvass is like, oh, well, you figured out how to do this. This is how you do the next thing. And like actually have the game encourage you to use this system rather than just have it sit there and go click on it if you feel bored. I think that's also probably the thing that could use some touching up. Then let's go with that, since you wanted one of those as well. They could incorporate the crafting more thoroughly into the rest of the mechanic, because right now it just feels like it's a little bit of a layer on top, some sprinkles on top of the mechanic that you don't need them. You can do it with or without.
One thing that we haven't touched on at all that I know a lot of people kind of feel quite strongly about. What do you feel about the fact that it definitely does push a gotta go fast playstyle? Like, you can't play a super slow build.
I might catch some flack for this, but in my opinion, clear speed is a vector by which a build can be judged. And I don't think that it's the only one. I don't think every build needs to be as fast as humanly possible. But I think whether or not you can clear at a decent pace is something that your build can be judged by. And GGG implements mechanics that are sort of like, you know, checks, I guess, for these various things. Like there's tankiness checks in boss fights, there's DPS checks in boss fights, and then there's also clear checks. And you can argue whether or not the current one is too extreme. I think maybe they could slow down the speed of decay on some of them. It just feels really inconsistent, basically. But I don't think that like that's a bad kind of mechanic. I think in a game like Path of Exile, in an ARPG, clear speed is an attribute to a build that the game has full license to check you for.
It makes you angry in a good way. Like when I see a breach and it's just not throwing up any mobs, I'm just like, fuck, this is just sad. But like when when I make a mistake, or if it just shuts down a very uncontrolled way and it just kicks me out, I get that quick like little fuck. But then I move on, and 10 seconds later I do another one, and this one's successful.
You see,
It's like,
that feels great when mapping. It feels horrible when you're in the Nexus, though.
Yeah, because you lose your chain, extra investment.
I do, however, agree with Octavian that we're a bunch of elitist pricks, but honestly, it's fucking hard to fuck up a build nowadays in Path of Exile to the point of it being incapable to complete any content in that way. Like,
and I'm not saying you shouldn't like try and make your meme build that is just full on block, doesn't move barely fast at all, and stands there and face tanks everything and slowly whittles away. But you shouldn't expect that highly specialized build to be able to do all the content in the game necessarily. Like that would be really good for sitting in front of Minotaur and walking away and making some nice hot soup while you wait for Minotaur to die. But it's not going to be very good for clearing memory fragments. That's sort of fine in my opinion. Like I think those builds are cool.
How fast do you really need to go? It's not like you can be like a moderately fast character and you're doing fine. I mean, you'll encounter the occasional, this actually I was a little bit too slow here, but I don't think this particular one requires you to have that much clear speed. Right? I mean, if you just kind of like jog along around the edge and you click and click.
It's hard to tell because it starts despawning from a side. Like that's what I've noticed, right? That it picks a side, it starts despawning, and sometimes it starts despawning right on top of you, and that's usually the one that really pisses you off. But then
but that's also the one that when you get the flame dash and you make it, you feel like a fucking badass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it does. I think
like an incursion, you would just fail, and that's it, and you would do it every time, and you were fucked, and like that really sucked.
I think this league has had more fuck yeah, I'm cool moments than any other league. Because there's been a few when it's like closing around you and you chain like 3 flame dashes on like, you get like little pocket islands where it hasn't fully evolved. So it's like you dash to one island, then you dash, and then when you get up the island, like, stream, you saw that? I'm just gonna click that real quick. And then but other times you do it and you fail instantly, you're like, oh, fuck this, whatever. But when you get it, you feel like...
Forget about it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about them just making it so there's a little icon telling you where the memory stabilizers are and then you don't guess the wrong direction, but they could even maybe speed up the rate of decay if they really need to balance that. So you're still fighting against the decay at the same rate, but you don't just get screwed because you happen to flame dash the wrong way once.
Maybe have like, I don't know, maybe you can't really do that now, but little voice like, it's coming in from the left.
To be fair, that would feel really bad when you got like the cells layout, because you're like, oh, I'm going top right, and it just takes you into a wall, and you're like, oh, thanks for the arrows, GGG.
I like the little exploration again. Like that's more like what we talked about, what I mentioned before, where maybe they didn't intend for you to run every single one. Maybe this is like part of it, where you're intended to fail some of them, and it's gonna get frustrating. You're gonna have to. It's gonna be okay. Like that's the thing. Like you don't dwell on it. That's the nice part. On a breach, I feel like I dwell on those things, but on this, I use 10 seconds. You're over it. Yeah, let's go. But day one, it was really fucking frustrating. Every time it covered me, I was just like, God damn it. This shit sucks.
Then you figured it out, right? How to like deal with it? You got a little faster.
Sometimes. Sometimes I run into a place, I turn around, and it's already like covered up right at the entrance. I'm just like, what am I supposed to do here?
That's the other thing, is that we're still week 1, so a lot of builds are still extremely rough and aren't going to be clearing as quickly as they can. So this content may very well have been balanced around, mid-league levels of clear speed for most of the player base, rather than week 1 levels of clear speed.
Since we've touched on builds a little bit though, how have we felt about the whole like handcasting rework and like the new skill tree and all of that kind of stuff?
It's great.
I like it.
Yeah, they did a really good job across the board. There's tons of skills that I'm excited about trying now, and builds that I want to make and stuff. And I've been playing some Ice Trap because it's actually a real skill now. It's wonderful.
It's the single target, like really just.
I've only just gotten to Blood Aqueducts with it, but it's felt fine throughout the whole chunk and everything. And Stormburst was what I, completed my Atlas with, and the new Stormburst feels really freaking good too. It's, as I said at the start of the podcast, it's one of the most interesting skills they've released in a long time. Like, it's got really sort of unique behavior in the way that you want to like scale duration to certain breakpoints in order to get the most efficiency out of it.
It's like it's the Firestorm I always wanted, where you can like move it around and everything. Because I played Firestorm for like 5 leagues straight, just trying to make it good, and it just never became what I wanted it to be. Because it had all these like scale with duration and AOE. It's just scaled with everything, but it just kind of always just wasn't good.
I hear good things about Unleash Firestorm.
Oh yeah, that's true.
A lot of people playing Whispering Ice as well. Yeah.
I ended up not doing it because they announced the whole thing with the how Unleash has cast speed and stuff. I'm like, well, can't afford the 0.5% less clear speed. Sorry.
Unleash feels okay if you play it on high cast speed characters. If you've got no cast speed, it's really noticeable that your character like locks up really badly. But if you have enough cast speed, it's just kind of like a slight extra jitter, and you move fine with it. I've only played Tricksters this league, so I've just been like going full cast speed. So it's like,
a good league for it.
Yeah.
No, I think they definitely did a better job. Like it was a roller coaster of emotions for me, because
really
they announced the balance and it was like, wow, this is everything I've ever wanted. And then they released the patch notes and I'm like, ooh, this is like 30% amazing, 50% I really don't care, and 20% terrible. But like now that we're getting into it, it's like, oh wow, there's so many just good things about this that I don't even care about that 20%. So